Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Savvy Life on Caffeine TV. I am Melissa Tosetti, and I am the founder of The Savvy Life. And if you have joined us in the past, you might realize that I am alone today. My colleague Kevin Gibbons is actually traveling, and so we thought that this would be an excellent opportunity for me to actually be able to tell you how the Savvy Life came about. It is not a linear story, as most things are not, but I realized that in the past I've actually I talk often about how the Savvy Life, the very beginning of the story of how the Savvy Life came about, but not how it continued to unfold over the last over a decade. So that's what I will be telling you today. In fact, including hey, Travis, including the fact that most of you probably don't know that the Savvy Life actually started out as a print magazine 14 years ago. And it is what it is now, which is this day-to-day financial education company. And so what I want to do before I jump in and begin my story is I want to remind you that if you are joining us live, right, if you're not watching this on YouTube, later we're recording this and we'll upload it later, that this is interactive. So you just saw that Travis just typed in, he said hello, I said hello back. If you want to interact with me today, all you need to do is go in right there, you should see where you can actually register with Caffeine TV. It takes just a few minutes, and all you have to do is answer a couple questions, and then you can do exactly that. You can ask questions, you can comment, and actually we both love that. Kevin, even though he's not here today, Kevin and I both love that because we get a chance to hear your questions, get your input versus us just sitting here talking to ourselves, and we can actually see ourselves on the screens. It's a little disturbing, so interaction is much appreciated. And with that, I will go into the story of how the Savvy Life came about. So this actually starts back in 1990, very, very long time ago. I was living in my hometown of Fresno, California, and decided to move to the San Francisco Bay Area. This is where my boyfriend at the time was, now husband, and decided to move to the San Francisco Bay Area, and realizing that the cost of living difference was going to be a little bit different. But did not have a clue as to just how catastrophic a decision that I had just made in moving up here. So first of all, I didn't have a career. I really didn't have any true skills. And so I came up here with nothing to really do. You know, I wasn't in any particular career. But on top of that, I had a fair amount of debt when I came here. And so, you know, the question that I ask whenever I do speaking engagements is, how many of you were taught about money as kids? And I have learned that the majority of Americans, we were not taught about money. The same thing with me. My parents are amazing, and they taught me, and my grandparents taught me so many incredible skills, but money was not one of them. And so consequently, when I moved up here, I struggled. Well, I managed to get a job at a public relations firm answering phones from 7 in the morning till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I talk about how my parents didn't teach me about money as a kid, but what they taught me and what my grandparents taught me was a work ethic. And I had gotten myself into this situation, and so I needed to work myself out. So in addition to the receptionist job, I actually went out and got a job at a sports pub that's actually still here in the San Francisco Bay Area in San Carlos, California, a Sneakers sports pub. And 3-4 nights a week, I would leave my receptionist job at 4, and by 5 o'clock I was clocked in, and I would wait tables till about 11:30 at night. Travis is local, and so yeah, he knows that Sneakers is a great sports pub. And yes, they did move, which means that they were doing really, really good business, and I'm very happy for them. So while the food there is fantastic and the experience of working that extra waitressing job allowed me to pay off my debt. It took me about a year, and I did manage to do that. What came of that experience was that I knew how hard I had to work in order to pay off that debt, and I still didn't have any money skills. And so what I kept thinking in my head for the couple of months after I quit the waitressing job is, I don't have debt, I have some money, but I'm afraid to spend any money now because I feel like if I buy anything that isn't an absolute need, I'm going to have to go wait tables again. And while very often in our lives we'll look back at times where we maybe had to endure a bit or work hard, might look back at those times and think, oh, a little nostalgia. Like, yeah, we worked hard, but we had fun. As much of a great restaurant as Sneakers is, that experience of working a full-time job and then working another 20 hours on top of that, those were not times that I ever wanted to repeat again. I was working all the time. If I did have a day off, I was so exhausted that I didn't want to go out and do anything. And I came home smelling like Budweiser 4 nights a week. These are not times that I wanted to repeat, and that embedded in me, whether I was conscious of it or not. And so I became so fearful around money. And it was simply the fact that I did not have money skills, right? But I didn't even know I didn't have money skills. So what did I do? I spent 2 years not doing anything, right? If I wanted to read a book, I'd go to the library. Well, for the most part, I still do that. But if we didn't go out to dinners, we didn't really travel, we didn't go out to movies. It was almost like I was punishing myself to an extent, again, simply out of fear. And about that 2-year mark, I hit what we call frugal fatigue. And it hit me like a 2x4. It was just that idea that I kept thinking, there has to be a balance between creating a foundation, being financially responsible, but still living life. Like, people have got to be doing it. And so that's when it started to dawn on me that perhaps the money skills is what was missing. And I started to go out and I started to research. Okay, so what does it mean to track spending or to balance a checkbook, right? This was way back in the day. What does it mean to, like, how much money should I be saving? Like the basic money skills that I had no idea. And so as I started to research it, I actually realized that I found it really, really interesting. Now, I want to be very clear. Kevin and I, we are not financial planners. So we don't talk about investments. We don't talk about stocks. We talk about simple money skills. And that really, truly is what I became so fascinated by. And so little by little, I felt stronger around that. And then I started to think about, well, okay, so I've got these money skills, but I really want to live life better. Like, how do I make my money go further? And not in a dollary stretchy way, but more in a picking and choosing way. And I started to think, wow, okay, so maybe that's what it's all about. Maybe that I really focus on and zero in and advance. What is it that I really want to be spending my money on? And then where can I economize in? And that is about the time that the Savvy Life philosophy came about. And even though the Savvy Life didn't exist at that time, that became the philosophy for how I managed my money. And the example that I always give when I'm teaching our money skills class or our money habits class or working with a client is that for Paul and I, the way that the one area where we really want to spend more money on is on travel. We both just have the big travel bug, and luckily our son Dante, who's 12, is also just mad crazy about travel. So that's what we decided a long time ago where we wanted to spend. We had to come up with an idea for some ideas in some areas where we could economize in so that we could afford to travel, right? Well, one of the biggest ticket items for us that was a very easy decision was where we could save was on cars. Paul and I, we are not car people. We don't need to be driving the latest, greatest vehicles. So we made a decision a very long time ago that if we needed to replace one of our cars, we would go out and we would purchase a nice, reliable used car. And the money we saved by not having two separate, $300, $400 a month car payments, a fair share amount of that money could go towards our travel savings account. So that decision, that was probably about 17, 18 years ago that we decided that that's what we were going to do. And in that time, we've traveled across the US, we've traveled across Canada, we've been to Scotland, Orkney, Italy, just all over cruises. We would take regular trips to Disneyland, and then we discovered Vegas, adult Disneyland. And this was all before we did Disney a lot before we had a 12-year-old. But we just lived life, and that's what we just got so much out of that. But there is one trip in particular that really solidified for me how powerful this philosophy is. Back in 2001, Paul and I had the opportunity to travel to China, which is great. Anybody can do that. But I think most of you know that Paul and I are both martial artists, and in 2001, we had a chance to actually travel to China with our Kung Fu school, which was extraordinary. Not only did we climb the Great Wall, and we got to perform in front of, these Chinese schools. We actually got to go and train with the Shaolin monks for 2 days at the Shaolin temple in the snow outside. It was crazy. But I was talking with Dante about that trip about a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, and I was thinking about it, and I realized that if I was still overspending, there is no way that I could have been able to afford that trip. It's not a cheap vacation. But if I was still in that extreme frugality mode, I never would have given myself permission to go on that trip. And I would have missed out on this once in a lifetime opportunity. So knowing when to spend and knowing when to save, that became the cornerstone for this idea of living a savvy life. And in this time, it's a bit, like I said, this is not a linear story. Around this time, I started to just really see, notice the coworkers that I really liked, that the way that they were dressed, or they just really seemed pulled together. Like all of a sudden I started to realize, wow, they're kind of dressing not in a uniform per se, but it's a less is more kind of thing. And then I started to realize, asking questions, where are they shopping? And I'll never forget, there's one person in particular, Jessica, who I to this day still adore. She's like 3 years younger than I was at the time. And every time she walked in the door, she looked amazing. She could always pull her outfit together. And I asked her finally where she got her clothes and where she did her shopping. And she said that pretty much her entire wardrobe was from Salvation Army. And that was a big thing for me. And it wasn't that I needed to go and buy all my clothes from thrift stores, although I'm still a fan of thrifting. In fact, I think this one's actually from Goodwill. It's the idea that it's not how much money you're spending on the items, because there are folks that can walk into a Nordstrom and look like they walked out shopping at, not at a Nordstrom, right? Not pulled together. It's really about the skill of putting those clothes together. And so I realized, okay, so this is an education that I need to figure out, is in the clothes, and so I can spend smarter in that and feel good about that. And then I started the same thing around food. And little by little, I started to realize, wow, this is all interconnected, the way that we spend our money, right? So if I can get a jacket that I really love at Goodwill, that means that I can get a pair of shoes at Nordstrom and spend more on it because I'm madly in love with it. Do you get the idea? And so this started to evolve, and it started to evolve, and I became it was like a hobby for spending smart. It was a hobby, not the spending, but just the living part of it. I want to be very clear about that. So as I was going along and realizing, I probably am not the only hot mess that ever was interested in making some changes, right? Organizationally. In my home too, there's mad confessions about how disorganized I was and how much clutter around my home, and what I've done to try to get on the other side of that. Again, all connected to money, all connected to spending purposefully. So I finally decided that I wanted to start writing about this. And instead of doing something sane like any normal person would, and writing a couple articles and submitting them to see if they could get published in a newspaper or a magazine, I decided that I was going to start actually my own magazine, right? Because why not? So it took me 2 years, and I was doing this while working a full-time job. Apparently I'm the queen of the side gig, but I finally managed to get our magazine published, and we published quarterly, and it was titled at the time Budget Savvy Magazine. We published quarterly for 2 years, from 2004 until 2006. And I'd probably still be doing that, but in 2006 we saw the writing on the wall, and that's when we decided to go online. We could get a much bigger audience, the cost, right? Talk about being purposeful with money. And so that's what we did. And since 2006, almost every single week since 2006, so that's 13 years, we have published an article or a blog post every single week, right? I always think of myself as a writer first, and that's what we've done. So do that for a couple of years, we shift online, and right around 2008, we hit the recession, right? Everybody's hurting for money, everybody's struggling, everybody is miserable. And I thought, we have these great articles online on our website, but they're all over the place. So there's no, there's no straight line for how to start living a savvy life. So I thought, okay, I'm a writer, and I'd really love to publish a book. I always thought I'd be a fiction author, but nonfiction's pretty cool. So in 2008, I started writing. I created, did what I needed to do to create an outline of the book, and I started submitting manuscript or proposals to publication houses. And it took 2 years and 36 rejection letters before Morgan James Publishing gave us the thumbs up and agreed to publish our book. Now, very important piece of magic in this particular part of the story. Around this time, right? It's not just I was moving in one straight line. Around this time, I started getting people asking if I would go and do speaking. And I'd never really done that before outside of stuff in high school. And so very nervously and with lots of notes and shaking, I went out and I did a couple speeches. First one I did was actually in the Moscone Center in San Francisco. It was a big audience. But I got charged by that. I really liked that. There was something about going from tapping out articles in your own computer at home to standing in front of an audience and hearing them, watching them nod their head or laugh at the right spots, or to hear their questions, right? That's one of the reasons why we like Caffeine TV so much, because it's interactive. And so that was something that I knew I wanted to do more of. And I also realized, based on the reception from audiences, that this is something that people wanted to hear about, or at least that was my perception of it. Around this same time too, weirdly, this is nothing I ever pursued, but weirdly, people started coming to me and asking me for help to create budgets. And I'd never done anything like that before, but I thought, outside of my own family budget and expenses. So I thought, okay, yeah, that let me try. And so I did a handful of them and realized this is fun. I like this. This is being able to help somebody go figure out, first of all, what their expenses are, and then look at, because it's an outside person, like when you're looking at your own stuff, it can be very easy. We have a tendency to have blind spots, but to look at it and go, you know what, if you could tweak this here and maybe spend a little less here, you could spend more here, because this is really where you want. And I remember the very first paying client I ever had was this woman. She was a mountain climber. And our whole big thing was we created a 2-year plan to get her to Nepal, to be able to go and climb in Nepal. And I remember not only did we write her spending plan, but I remember thinking, looking at it and going, wow, this is just numbers on an Excel spreadsheet. I feel like it needs interpretation. And that's when we started, or the premise of how we started writing spending reports for clients too. Kevin calls them very geniusly the user's manual of the spending plan. And I love that, because that's what it is, right? Because otherwise they're trying to look at, okay, so how much should I be spending on dining out? And what did we talk about how to spend less in groceries, or whatever that might be. And so that was like another piece to this puzzle. So all this was happening right around the time that we were trying to get the book deal. And I pointed to you, or I showed to you, our original title of our business and our magazine was Budget Savvy. And I started to get some feedback from folks and people that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, that the word budget is a word that turns people off. And while I thought I had a brand and I didn't want to make the change, I didn't have a brand. We weren't that big. I finally decided to make the change, and we retitled the manuscript for the book, and we retitled the website to From Budget Savvy to The Savvy Life. And within 2 weeks, we got a book deal. So a little magic. I like to believe in the little magic moments like that, and that was one. And the rest is history, as Travis says. Thank you. So that's it. We got the book deal, and 9 months later, we wrote this book, Living the Savvy Life, in 3 months. I feel like we cheated because so much of the material was online, and it was a matter of actually just organizing it. And it really is, the idea of it is, how do you start with your money skills? And then once you get those money skills in place, then how do you spend smart on food, on clothes, on travel, on entertainment, all of it? And that's what that's all about. So that was in 2011, we got published. And again, still we've got folks coming to us asking for budget advice, still doing speaking engagements. And around this time, I met this woman, Sandra Wales. She's a financial advisor in the San Jose area. And she gave me life-changing advice. And to this day, I'm still so very grateful to her. We were talking, and I was talking about how, it can be challenging to try to sell people this idea of us creating a budget for them, right? So first of all, people don't want to, they don't want to do a budget. And it's, you know, and again, trying to language it so that they understand, no, it's a plan to do the things that you want to do. That's simply what it was. And that helped when we got Budget Savvy, when we changed our name. But one of the things that she told me as a financial advisor, she says, you know what, most financial advisors, I want to be very, very careful when I say this. Many financial advisors don't want to do budgeting for their clients. It's a waste of their expertise. For many of them, it's not something that they enjoy doing. Now, I say that I want to be very careful because a lot of financial advisors watch this. There are advisors that actually really love the cash flow planning process, but so many of them don't. And she said, there's your audience. Go out to them. And in fact, many of them do events for their clients, and they're always looking for fresh material. And so I very nervously picked up the phone. Oh, it's awful. If you've ever had to promote your own business, you know how painful those calls are. And within a couple of calls, I was very lucky. Within a couple of calls, I had the first financial advisor in San Mateo, just right down the street, offered to, or said that he would be willing to have me speak in front of his clients and do, it was like a telephone presentation. So I did that, and then that was that first little step. And then pretty soon, did a little bit more. Pretty soon, advisors are hiring me to work one-on-one with their clients to create those spending plans. And now it is that was in 2012 that really started to happen. And it's 2019. And since then, we've done over 545 spending plans for advisors' clients specifically. I've done over 200 in-person presentations on the Savvy Life all across the US. And we've done over 240 webinars, actually just in the last couple of years. So it feels really good to be on the other side of this. And it's so funny to look back and go, I just wanted to write articles about money. But I wouldn't change anything. They're all the pillars of what it is that we do, I still love. And I still think of our website, The Savvy Life, as just an online magazine. And you can go there and you can see articles, and now you can see former recordings of these particular presentations. And you can, people do not have to be working with a financial advisor to work with us. Consumers hire us directly. All the information is on our website about that. But it all just continues to boil down to every day I get to talk to folks all over the United States. I had clients this morning in Atlanta, and a client this afternoon in Georgia, and then I'm going back to, in South Carolina, and then I've got another client after doing this that I'm talking to in Atlanta again. So, across the US, these folks are looking for ways to build a financial foundation for their future, right, while enjoying the journey. And that's what it's all about. How do you pick and choose, and especially how do you do that in a way now where money is so chaotic? Right? Yesterday, I don't even know what day it is, Tuesday, today's Thursday. Tuesday, I had a phenomenal opportunity to actually teach cash flow planning, right? It's the idea of creating spending plans, helping people with their money, to an audience of about 97 financial professionals. And as I introduced this subject of how important this is, I talked about how chaotic money is now, right? The fact that our spending is rapid fire. We tend to spend more money in a single day than we used to spend in a week. We have so many different types of currency for how we spend money. I always say I can buy a cup of coffee with my phone. We've got Venmo and PayPal, and it can be so challenging to understand in any given pay period, how much money do I have available to spend on the things I want to without getting myself into financial trouble. And on top of that, we are crazy busy. We are so busy. And so we just bounce like pinballs from one expense to the next versus going in a straight line toward our goals, or purchasing and, walking into a store and purchasing in a straight line the things that are going to enhance our lives rather than just kind of distracting us as we go along. So that's what we continue to teach. That's a big part of the presentations here. And I'm grateful to Caffeine TV. And I know Travis is actually, who's been popping on here. Travis works for Caffeine TV. He's the reason that we're here. And I'm grateful for that, because you get a chance to hear our personalities and see that we're normal people. We just like talking about money and spending it well, and just that it's a positive conversation about money. I always say these are not conversations about frugality. Yep. I love money too. These are very, very positive conversations about money. And it's just this idea, if you take anything else away from today, and I really appreciate you letting me tell the story, because like I said, I don't think I've ever told it from start to finish to an audience before. But, you know, have a plan. Decide what it is that you want to spend more on, and then give yourself a chance to look around and go, okay, where could I be economizing in, and not from a pain way or punishment way, but from a, look, if I don't do this, I get to do this, right? You know, what is your travel goal, or whatever that might be, and start working towards it. And I will leave you, I've got just a couple minutes left. I'll leave you with other resources around that. I encourage you to go to our website, thesavvylife.com. On our homepage, we have an area where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter. We call it The List. And what the list is simply is, it is a list of a couple of items every single week, tasks, habits, challenges to take on or adopt in order to start living a savvy life or to sustain your savvy life. So I encourage you to do that. Connect with us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. And then also we have been recording and publishing these recordings on YouTube. And so if you would like to see more, we've got, I think, close to 10 sessions on there now. Go over to YouTube. As they say, like and subscribe. And if you could share this information, if you know anybody who is just looking how to spend smarter, if you could share this information with them, we'd be grateful. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Kevin will be with us. We're actually, this is very important. If you are live with us next week, it's 4th of July next Thursday. So we are actually going to be doing our session on Wednesday. So if you happen to be around 3 o'clock Pacific, we'll be there next Wednesday. And yes, Travis, I will tell Paul a happy belated birthday. Thank you so much. All right, you guys, have a good one. Bye-bye.